Hello YouTube, welcome back to my saw channel. Today I'm taking a look at my Lombard 35 gear drive saw from early mid-1950s. I want to say 1954 or 1955, one of the two. It is a gear drive saw that uses everybody's favorite AH-47 Power Products engine, 77cc. Not overly powerful, nothing overly spectacular, but really popular back in the day. Reliable enough. They were used in a wide variety of saw models, and Lombard started using those motors in 1951, starting with their 316 Woodlot Wizard, after they stopped using Homelite engines in their 1- and 2-man chainsaws from earlier. So, today I got under the flywheel, and I readjusted the timing. I was having an issue for a longest time with this thing where, it would start and it would want to try to run, but it would start backfiring, spitting, sputtering, belching smoke, would not develop full power. Couldn't even spin the chain hardly. And at first I thought it was a low compression issue or a gearbox problem. Now, the engine only has 75 psi compression, which obviously by today's standards is shameful. I mean, any modern saw wouldn't even attempt to run with compression like that. And even the older ones from the 60s and 70s, like the old Homelites, they'd maybe start, but they would not develop full power, they would not idle, they wouldn't really want to cut very well. But for these engines, 75 to 90 or 100 psi is actually really good. The manual states that if you have anything below 70 psi, you want to tear it down and service the engine. But at 75, this one actually runs pretty well, and now that I fixed my timing issue, it actually wants to stay running and develop those full RPMs and sound just like an old chainsaw with stack exhaust should. Now, this was one of those saws. Lombard had some goofy shenanigans going on where they would stick the Model 316 starter shroud with an identical engine serial number as found on this serial tag. So a lot of people would think that this was a 316 and others were 316s, when in fact we use the serial number on that ID plate for the model identification. And you can see that this is a Model 35 with saw serial number 12746, engine serial number 178332. So again, this is not a 316 like it would say on the starter shroud, or like a bunch of sellers on eBay would have you believe. This is a Model 35. Anyway, what I found today was I went under the flywheel and I found the ignition plate was way out of rotation. The stator plate was way out of rotation. And what had happened was, over years and years and decades of use, the tensioner screw, which holds the stator plate down, actually backed off, not all the way, just enough where the plate over time would vibrate itself clockwise and fall at a time. It rotated out so badly. The net result was a bunch of backfiring, spitting, sputtering, no power, and fortunately it didn't cause any catastrophic engine damage, but you could also argue that 75 psi isn't exactly optimal, but anyway, that's what it is. And after I pulled the flywheel off, it took me a long time to find that stator plate tensioning screw. And that was really my first clue, because it should be, you pull the starter shroud off, pull the flywheel off, you should be able to stick a flat blade screwdriver right behind the stator plate, backing plate, if you will, and manipulate, open and close that tensioner screw. And I could not do that. I could not find it for the life of me. I stuck a flashlight in there, and after several minutes of searching around and running up and down stairs looking at the IPL and, chasing my tail, I finally saw a shiny little glimpse of what looked like the screw head for a flat blade screwdriver. And I couldn't access it with any earthly screwdriver. I mean, you'd have to have something that was, bent every which way with a flexible shaft. It's just logically impossible. Who would design it that way? So that was my first clue that something was really out of rotation. What I was able to do was actually take a plastic mallet and wrap lightly on the side of the coil core, and that would actually rotate the plate enough to where I could get a screwdriver in there, open up or loosen the stator plate tensioning screw, and then rotate the plate by hand, setting it to approximately to where the piston is 1/10 of an inch below top dead center, before top dead center in the rotation, and the breaker points are supposed to open at that point per the manual. That's not what was happening originally. The breaker points were actually opening well beyond that point to where the engine was actually on its way to the bottom of the stroke, bottom dead center. I would say it was probably 1/4 of the way down the stroke before the points would open. So it was a miracle that this thing would even try to run at all. And after, I fixed that, I gave it a test run, and it ran a lot better. Still has some quirks. I still have to adjust the throttle advance on the carburetor. I had that screwed in all the way in an attempt to keep it running during the backfiring session. And now, because it runs well, it doesn't want to idle because I have that screw turned in all the way, and the revs just take right off even at idle. And ordinarily that would be a symptom of like an air leak, bad crank seal, or bad intake gasket, but I know for a fact that my throttle screw is dialed all the way in. So I'm going to back that off. I'm going to adjust what's left of the main adjustment screw on the back of the carburetor. There's supposed to be an aluminum dial with numbers on it. That's gone. That's just a casualty to the years. So fortunately I'm able to get in there with a flat blade screwdriver and still open and close it. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of days, because it's dark out right now, I'm going to put the bar and chain back on it. I'm going to noodle with the carburetor a little bit and, pretend to take it out, and just like I want to do some cutting or something, fire it up, give it a cold start, see how it runs, and with any amount of luck, maybe I'll be able to do some test cuts with it. But this is a project I've been noodling with for a long time. It's been frustrating not knowing where that backfiring was coming from. I was chasing air leaks. I pulled the carb off countless times, checked the intake gaskets, checked the reed plate. All of that was up to snuff. There are no leaks anywhere there. So I posted a couple threads on the Chainsaw Collectors Forum, the Swedish one, and then House of Home Light. Even though it's not a home light, still good discussion over there. And many of those users were telling me that chances are, Joe, your problem is with timing. And, I could swear that I had adjusted the timing on this before, but, I got so many of these projects going, I'm probably just confusing myself with which ones I actually did. So, anyway, I'm happy to have this one sort of back in operation again. Again, it still needs some tuning, still needs a little bit of work, but I'm really happy with the way this one's turning out. And, for an early mid-1950s saw that has a lot of hours on it, it's still a pretty badass piece of equipment. Happy to have it going, happy to make some noise with it, really happy to piss off the neighbors with it. And, this is just another one where I'm going to call it a success. And hopefully I can get this thing outside sometime soon and use it like an actual chainsaw should be used. So, until then, see you next time.